All right, listen.
What's this about Super Bowl tickets?
Oh, boy.
You got an extra ticket to the Super Bowl? And you're taking Gianni?
That ticket should be mine, and you know it.
All right, look, first of all, put the fork down, Dad.
I'll put the fork down when there's a ticket on it.
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study. I'll never get into Stanford.
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I got to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you want to start taking
Sitcoms,
notes.
the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, we've got quite a situation here. We announced a certain topic we were going to cover last week.
Yes.
And then we got an email at sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com.
Not complicated at all.
From a model citizen named Matthew who had a suggestion that was so inspired.
Yes.
So timely.
We had to call an audible.
You just took my joke. God damn it. I was going to dazzle you
with
my
football
sitcom
knowledge?
terminology by saying that we called an audible.
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
That is exactly what we did. What are we talking about?
Well, we decided, thank you, Matthew, to cover Super Bowl episodes.
We're talking sitcoms about the Super Bowl. Matthew provided a robust list. There are plenty to choose from. So I'm going to ask you, do you have or have you ever had Super Bowl fever? How, to what extent are you interested in this game of games?
A game of games. So football was like a kind of a big part of my growing up. I grew up in the South, as we've talked about. College football is huge down there. And so I was really into college football. And then, of course, my dad was into NFL. And I still play on a fantasy football league. So I would say definitely have been into football more in the past than I think I am now. Used to watch more frequently and used to throw Super Bowl parties every year. Haven't done that since I've known you or in a very long time.
Have you ever been, since this is the focus of so many of our shows, have you ever been in proximity of the coveted Super Bowl tickets?
Oh, so you're touching a nerve, Jay.
Just like many of our characters have experienced. It can tear families asunder.
It sure can. No. Okay, so here's the deal. It's not actually the tickets. It's the halftime show. Okay. So remember that fun little group I've told you about that was called Kids A Poppin'?
Kids A Poppin', I am familiar.
That I was a little kids song and dance troupe that I was in when I was young. And I tried and tried and tried from second grade until fifth grade to convince my mom to let me be in it. Well, in fourth grade, the Super Bowl halftime show was Michael Jackson, and it was the it's black, it's white, kind of all of that.
That would be his Dangerous album in the early 90s.
And then didn't he do like a Free Willy song as well?
I will say, the innuendos are all over the place. He was indeed dangerous, we turned out, in the 90s, and kids should not have been sent to see him, and he did in fact like to free his willy.
Okay, there we go. Lots going on there. So Michael Jackson was the halftime performer, and every kid in town that did any type of dance, song and dance troupe, singing, anything, got to be in the halftime show.
For Heal the World, his famous anthem from the Free Willy soundtrack.
Yes. Make it a better place. Yes. So that was when I was in fourth grade. Note the timing. That was still before my mom let me be in Kids A Poppin'. So I had a huge argument with her and I said, next year, when auditions come around, you're not keeping me from this. Look at all these amazing things that I could be doing. I could meet Michael Jackson.
Yes. I assume now you consider yourself lucky that did not take place.
No, not at all, because I wouldn't have actually met him. There were hundreds of kids on the field. It was this amazing experience, and I didn't get to do it because I wasn't in Kids A Poppin' yet. Darn it, Mom. But so that is my proximity to the Super Bowl.
All right. Well, it may surprise you to learn that not only have I never been to the Super Bowl, I have never attended a professional football game in my life.
Wait, what? Seriously?
I will say, I was thinking about this a little bit. Of the major professional sports, American football is definitely the one that I am the least familiar with.
Yeah, your
and
dad
have the
is
least
much more
interest.
into baseball and basketball.
I, as a kid, played soccer and basketball, so I at least know how they're played. And in the 90s, during the sort of Chicago Bulls three-peat era, I actually got into watching professional basketball. My dad is, yes, very into baseball, so I attended many Yankees games. So those are all sports that I can at least follow. Hockey, I've been to, I think, 2 games at Madison Square Garden over the years, just kind of with friends or whatever.
Yeah.
Football is the one that, even though they're all basically the same, it's a bunch of people trying to get a ball across a field, football has always been mystifying to me with all of the herky-jerky pacing of it, that they stop the game basically anytime anything happens, all the weird scoring, all the details and statistics and everything. It's always kept me at arm's length. I've always found it confusing. And so I would say that certainly I've been to Super Bowl parties, and of course the commercials are fun and all that. Yeah. But I don't think there has ever been a time, including this year, when I could have told you on the morning of the Super Bowl what 2 teams are playing, or the day after that I could remember the team that won.
Right.
It's just not something I've ever been invested in. That said, I think all of these sitcom episodes were quite fun. So tell them what our lineup is. What did we watch?
All right. We watched Seinfeld, Season 6, Episode 12, The Label Maker. Married with Children, Season 11, Episode 21, Damn Bundys. You'll notice that one's a little bit later in the season. It didn't actually line up with the Super Bowl, but it features Super Bowl. Sure. So we put it on the list. And The Simpsons, Season 10, Episode 12, Sunday Cruddy Sunday. And finally, Everybody Loves Raymond, Season 5, Episode 13, Super Bowl.
Yeah, so this Seinfeld episode, immediately it begins with one of Jerry's stand-up bits that I agree with wholeheartedly. I came to this conclusion as soon as I was old enough to observe professional sports.
Why do you wear that shirt?
Yeah, that everybody has this allegiance to the team and the players.
You like his clothes.
As Seinfeld points out, that the players move from city to city. It is very rare that they're actually from the city. It's not like, so-and-so really represents Utah or something.
I completely agree. That is how I got into fantasy football, because I wanted to follow my Gators around in the NFL.
Yeah, and so Jerry's bit is all about how the only thing that's really consistent is the uniform. So basically, as he would say, you're rooting for the clothes. You're in love with the clothes. That's the only thing anybody cares about. He wears these clothes. Yay. He wears those clothes. Boo. Right. That's our opening Seinfeld bit.
Your Seinfeld is bad.
I beg to differ. And then, we get into this episode, immediately establishes what is going to be, I'd say, the central story point of 3 out of these 4 sitcoms, which is that they focus not so much on the Super Bowl itself, but on tickets.
Yeah, getting to go. Because
everybody wants to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, it's such an expensive ticket. Yes. You know what I mean?
And obviously, it's only one game. It's not like the World Series or playoffs. So just one football stadium's worth of people can attend.
Yes, and the towns, hosting the Super Bowl, it's kind of, not as massive as hosting the Olympics, but all of the hotel rooms are out, sold out, and it's expensive to get a room. It's expensive when you're there to go out to dinner. It's a big deal.
Interestingly, these shows we covered are all pretty close in time. They're all in the 90s.
Well, they're all right there, 95 to 2001.
Okay. They're always going to Florida, it seems. At least, they mentioned Miami. They mentioned Orlando, I think, in one time. Is there not an Orlando team?
No, there's not an Orlando team. They went to Miami and Tampa. There were two.
That's what I was thinking.
There was a Miami and a Tampa.
Yeah. So lots of focus on Florida. I guess that was real. Like those were the places where the Super Bowls were held.
2 years. Yes. I think it was Seinfeld 95 was in Miami, and then Everybody Loves Raymond in 2001 was in Tampa, which was about 10 years after my devastation at not getting to be in the Super Bowl halftime show.
Recovered.
Yes.
So, this is going to be all about these tickets sort of changing hands, but we actually don't find out the inciting incident. The episode starts with Jerry and George on the street. Jerry has 2 tickets to the Super Bowl that he's got for free, presumably through his showbiz connections or whatever. But I'm pretty sure we don't ever learn how he got them.
No, we don't.
But that's the MacGuffin, that he has these Super Bowl tickets. He can't go because of the Drake's wedding.
Right.
So this is what, season 6? This episode is deep in Seinfeld recurring lore. You know, they don't make too much of a big deal about any of these things, but there are several Seinfeld-isms that are coming from the past.
Oh, absolutely. And then the end of the episode, the end of George's storyline is a throwback to another
That's
episode.
That's a reference to the Menage a Trois. We start out with talking about the Drake, which was a big thing in at least one episode, many more.
The
just
Drake's
one of those.
wedding.
Yeah, well, just the Drake himself and them going, oh, the Drake, you gotta love the Drake. I love the Drake. It's just one of those things that Larry David
thought it was their last name and it was the Drakes.
No. Seinfeld and Larry David just thought this was funny that they referred to him like that. It's one of those Seinfeld things where they just said it back and forth again and again. And they were
so
obviously tickled by the idea that there was a character named the Drake.
There you go.
So they have to go to the Drake's wedding. So Jerry can't use his tickets. He runs into Tim Whatley on the street, his dentist friend.
He tries to give him the George first. And George, I love this bit where George is like, this is basically, this isn't a gift. Like, I don't want this. This is a bill I have to pay.
Yes.
Because, are you flying me there? Are you getting my hotel room there? Yep. This isn't a hey, isn't this great? I'm going to the Super Bowl. This is an $1,800 bill.
Yeah. I will also say this one is not as gendered as the others, but we do have the implication that Elaine wants nothing to do with the Super Bowl. He mentions, George says, did you ask Elaine, Kramer? He says, Elaine laughed in my face. Kramer only follows Canadian football, right? So his friends aren't interested. He runs into Tim Whatley, another recurring character. This is our buddy Bryan Cranston.
He's the dentist.
Yes, he's the dentist. He's kind of like a low-key scumbag, like he seems like this just sort of like normal, bland guy, but he's just kind of a dick. And Jerry offers him the tickets. He says, gee, thanks. This is another recurring bit where Tim Whatley goes, oh, how can I thank you? Why don't I take you out to dinner? And Jerry's like, no. I think that's a reference to one of the Kenny Banya episodes from earlier in the show. Banya's the annoying comedian that he does some favor for him, and he goes, oh, well, you know what you can do? You can take me out to dinner. And it's one of these things like, especially if you're the giver being thanked, it's like, I don't want, kind of like you're saying with George, you're not making it up to me by giving me an obligation to hang out with you and eat dinner with you, So when Jerry immediately goes, no dinner, I think that's what
they're shouting
referring
out.
to.
Got it.
Yeah. And so then we get what gives us the title of this episode. In the next scene, we find out that Cranston has thanked Jerry for the free Super Bowl tickets by giving him a label maker.
That's right. And Jerry calls him to say thank you, and he's like, oh, a label maker. How thoughtful.
Yeah, he goes, label me thankful. We get, there's a lot of Newman in this episode.
Yeah, because of the side plot with him and Kramer playing Risk. There are so many stories, recognizable stories in this episode. So I know about this storyline because when Russia invaded Ukraine, that the
huge meme.
Exactly. It was this huge meme. The ending scene of that storyline is Kramer and Newman on the subway finishing their game of Risk, and all Newman has left with his pieces on it in the game of Risk is Ukraine, and Kramer has taken over the entire world on the board, and he's like, "You've got nothing. Ukraine is weak."
And
then, of course, there is a man in a fur hat that is standing nearby, and he's
Typical
like,
Seinfeld.
"You cannot call Ukraine weak. My country is not weak." And he throws the board.
And I would say even before the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, I would have considered this one of the top 10, 15 iconic Seinfeld moments.
episodes.
That's definitely the part of this that I remember the most. Just the ridiculousness of them playing Risk on a subway. If you've ever played Risk, it's
all
a
these little
world map with
pieces.
tiny little pieces that,
that you have to
weigh
put all
nothing.
over countries.
Yes. And so it's very funny to have Kramer like picking up the board, sprinting through hallways, up and down stairs, getting on subways,
chasing after his car that is being towed while carrying the Risk board and none of the pieces moving.
Yeah, because Newman can't be trusted. He doesn't want to leave the board unattended because they have this ongoing Risk game. It's very funny the way they think of like, this represents actual world leadership to them. Like, oh, you would be a terrible leader. You wouldn't know how to run Poland or whatever. So yes, very funny side plot, but in typical Seinfeld fashion, everything is sort of connected.
Tied together, yeah.
Newman is Tim Whatley's mailman. He's everyone's mailman. And so somewhat inexplicably, as the characters point out who hangs out with their mailman, Whatley invites Newman to go to the Super Bowl with him.
Right. So we're going to track the tickets, right? The tickets go from Jerry to Whatley. Whatley says, okay, I'm going to share my extra ticket with Newman. And in the interim, we've found out that this label maker is not just a thank you gift. It was also a Christmas gift, but it was a Christmas gift that Elaine gave to Tim Whatley.
Yes. According to the Wikipedia page of this episode, the Oxford English Dictionary included the word regifter based on this episode.
Yes.
And so we have Seinfeld to thank.
Exactly. So there's one of these things where like the practice predated that word becoming really popular, but I mean, I can tell you right now, I never called it re-gifting until after this.
Yeah.
This became a turn of phrase due to Seinfeld.
Yeah, and when Seinfeld is trying to, like, rationalize it for him, he goes, I don't know, maybe it's an homage. Maybe he liked that present so much that now he gets it for everybody.
Yeah.
So this becomes, again, typical Seinfeld style. Elaine has a little mission now. She wants to infiltrate Whatley's house and see if he still has the label maker.
Right.
So she decides to go out with him because she has this sort of past with him. And we get the scene on his doorstep, post-date, where he's like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, he's like patting her on the shoulder. He's like, have a good night, Elaine.
Yeah. And she goes, aren't you going to invite me up? And he gives her a look. Like, he goes, you're really something, aren't you?
Nobody could put a label on you. And she's like, you're right. No one could put a label on
she
me.
Goes, we'll see. And then, and so we get, of course, we cut to the next day at the coffee shop. We've got a little bit of a Deus Ex Dentist thing where Whatley was called away on an emergency dental thing. So Elaine never had to consummate their relationship or even really broach that.
Well, and she was utterly surprised that the guys were all like, what do you mean? How did you get upstairs? And she's like, what do you mean? How did I get upstairs? I just said, hey, aren't you going to ask me upstairs? And they were like, oh, that's it. That's it. He thinks, you're going to get laid.
You're going to sleep with him. Yes. Which frankly, I mean, in the sort of world of this show where they're always constantly sort of casually dating and everybody has
in the world of the 90s, that was the code, right?
So it was a little surprising that Elaine would be taken aback. Like, what, just because I went up to his apartment after the date, that means he thinks we're going to sleep with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think in her mind, she was so focused on the mission and the fact that they had been friends forever, right? Like, she could say to Jerry, well, you're not going to ask me up? You know what I mean? Like, and it wouldn't be a thing. She could could say it to George, it wouldn't be a thing. She's focused on her mission. She's not paying attention to the fact that it's like, putting it out there a little bit.
Yeah.
And she also knows that you can say that and then you can still change your mind. Like you can peace out.
Yeah, there is a lot of funny little Seinfeldisms here when they're sort of figuring out this whole scheme of like, how are we gonna find out about the label maker? First, when she's talking about how she went upstairs to scour his apartment for the ticket, Jerry goes, "Oh, you're going upstairs like you're Mae West or something?" Right? Again, the Seinfeld references from the 30s. Mae West.
Everybody knows, why don't you come up and see me?
Yeah, and granted, like, Mae West is one I am familiar with, but I just thought that was such a funny reference. And then when he's breaking down this whole situation, he goes, "This ticket has been regifted, then degifted, then used an upstairs invite as a springboard for a Super Bowl sex romp." Just very good Seinfeld-style dialogue. And so, yes, it seems to be a surprise to her that she's given Whatley this impression that she wants to sleep with him, and ergo, he has now de-gifted his ticket to Newman and offered it to Elaine.
They are now going to the Super Bowl together.
Yes.
So the ticket has been transferred yet again from Newman to Elaine.
It's in Miami, like we said, so they're going to have to go on this trip together. Earlier, there was a conversation where George was mentioning how, I don't want to do any like overnight trips with this new woman I'm dating right away because then we've got to broach this subject of the sleeping arrangements. That's so awkward,
Yes.
And I would agree. I would say in general, you just don't want to be doing those kinds of trips on your second date. Like
Right.
it does just make things a little weird.
No, it's a little too intense right off the bat. Totally understandable. No, I'm not going to a tertiary location with you.
Yeah, and so we have them in the cab. At first, I thought they were like in the cab on the way to the airport or something.
No,
but
they're
this
just
is just
hanging out at
hanging out.
another time
Yeah.
because now she has a secondary mission. I got to find out if he thinks we're sleeping together on this trip.
Yeah.
And so she asks, and then he is all upset.
She does the thing of like, so what's the hotel like?
yeah.
How many beds are there? And she's like, well, there should be 2 beds, right? And he's like,
there's
why, are
2
you
of
bringing
us.
somebody? And she says, well, there's 2 of us. And you see he's crestfallen. And, it's clear that he's disappointed that he's not going to sleep with her. And so what do you know? De-gifted again, right?
That's right. He takes the ticket back from Elaine.
Yes.
And gives it to Jerry.
Yes. So now, I'm even having a hard time
Because Jerry
following this
had
now.
called him and said, hey, I know this is kind of a crappy thing
Because
to do.
the Drake changed his wedding.
The Drake found out that his wedding was on Super Bowl Sunday and changed his wedding. So he's like, I can go now. Can I have the tickets back? So after Elaine rejects Whatley calls Jerry and says, you want the spare ticket.
Yeah, which I feel like Jerry calling him is also kind of like a faux pas. Like,
Yeah,
you
that
wouldn't
was
do
totally shitty.
When George is the one that suggests it, and Jerry goes, are you at all familiar with the concept of giving?
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny. But then he kind of goes like, oh, well, you might as well try.
Right.
So yeah, that was weird.
He gets talked into it. He's like, hey, if he can thank you with a regift, you can ask to de-gift.
Yeah, and so he calls Whatley, but he doesn't press the issue. When Whatley says, no, I made plans or whatever, I think this is probably before we even found out that
It was
Newman was
Newman.
going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Jerry's like, okay, fine. I also
So-
just want to quickly point out, during these scenes where he's on the phone, we get a nice clean shot of Jerry's videotape shelf. I always noticed this ever since it was on in the 90s. Jerry inexplicably owns the movie Child's Play 2, which is one of my personal
While we're watching
favorites.
the episode, Jay goes, Child's Play 2, there it is.
You can always see it, especially now with the HD transfers. You can see it right there, and that's just so bizarre.
Is it because the logo is so bright on the spine?
Yeah, it's black with white writing, and like the 2 is like in blood.
The 2 is in the middle. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a very distinctive spine. He only has like 6 or 7 videotapes there, and I really think that they put it there not thinking anyone would ever be able to see it, because it's just not the kind of thing that he would have. But anyway.
He doesn't seem like the kind a guy who's into horror.
Yeah. Jerry has the ticket now. What gets him de-gifted again?
So he doesn't get de-gifted again. Jerry has the ticket now. He's definitely going to go. He is supposed to be going with Whatley, but then Whatley decides not to show up because Elaine remembers she wants to ask about the label maker.
Yeah.
And she's upset that she's been de-gifted the ticket.
Yeah.
So she goes over to confront Whatley about, both things. Like, it really hurt my feelings that you took the ticket away just because you found out I wasn't going to sleep with you. And the only reason I even asked to come up to your place in the first place wasn't because I wanted to sleep with you. It was because you gave Jerry a label maker and I wanted to know if it was a re-gift, because that really hurt my feelings, because I thought it was a really thoughtful gift because you did something and I thought you might need one.
He gave her free dental treatment and she really
but
appreciated
there was something that he had done that made her, besides the dental cleaning that she was saying thank you for, and also it was a Christmas present. But she was like, I thought it was really thoughtful because I noticed you had whatever in your house at that party when they were all at his party. And so I thought, so it was all like kind of tied together, that she really did, like, she tried to put thought into the gift and it hurt her feelings that he re-gifted it. And he's like, well, it was a shitty label maker. 5 minutes after you put the labels on, they fall off. Yeah. And so they're both like apologizing to each other and Elaine's crying and then they start making out on the porch. By the way, Julia Louis-Dreyfus has 103-degree fever during this scene, and Cranston ended up, of course, getting whatever she had, lost 3 pounds and was out sick for like a week and a half because of that.
Yeah, just because Whatley is now in love with Elaine.
Right. So it culminates with them on the stoop, just like making out. And so this is how Newman ends up with the ticket. Anyway, Whatley says, I felt so bad about de-gifting it from Elaine and de-gifting it from you. Newman, here, you take the ticket. Jerry's sitting there. He's waiting for Whatley to show up, and in comes Newman.
Yeah. And so that, you mean into the stadium?
Yeah, into the row and sits down right next to him.
Well, Jerry sits down, next to Newman. Newman was there first.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
Because Jerry has to sit between like two fat guys, basically, and he has no room, and they're doing that. Yeah.
No, but I thought, for some reason, I thought Newman was the one that came in.
No, because he's doing the thing of like GF, like finding his seat, and then he's like, hello, Newman. And you get that great sitcom slapstick where, Newman's got the bucket full of popcorn that like is entirely spilled all over the place after a few seconds.
He's got like 3 different snacks.
Yeah.
He's got a soda, like 2 different types of candy, or a hot dog and candy, plus the popcorn, and he's just like, throwing things around all over the place. And Jerry's like, can you move over an inch?
Yeah, I feel like this is the same thing, the same set they use whenever they're at a sporting event, which actually happens quite a lot in Seinfeld. We just get this little section of stands and we get the sort of off-camera game that we can hear. And George has this whole storyline that doesn't have much to do with anything, but is kind of funny and very 90s about his girlfriend.
Yeah, it's connected with the label maker.
Yeah, his girlfriend has a male roommate that he's totally taken aback by. The male roommate looks just like him. And so standard Seinfeld story, what are you going to do about the roommate? And then he gets her to kick out the roommate. And then he realizes the commitment he's made and all the furniture he liked belonged to the roommate. And now he doesn't want to go out with the girl anymore, blah, blah, blah. And so again, call back to a classic Seinfeld situation. The way to get rid of your girlfriend, to make her break up with you, is to suggest a threesome in the vernacular of a menage a trois.
That's right.
And that's what he does.
Except the roommate has come back because all of his stuff was lost in shipping because the label maker that doesn't stick was used to label his packages. We found out that the girlfriend lives Upper West Side on West End Ave because that's where he was moving. The guy was moving to West End Ave because those are the labels that fell off.
That's the same neighborhood, more or less.
So then labels fell off, so he's coming over to drown his sorrows and hang out with his friend and his former roommate. George suggests the menage a trois, and the girlfriend is like, oh, Scott, remember that thing we were talking about? George is in.
Yeah, exactly. And then it ends with the
Gay
roommate.
panic.
Yes, the roommate approaching George. The camera pushes into George's face, literally gay panic, screams, "Oh no, what have I done?" Welcome to the 90s. And and that's the episode.
So would you like to know or take a guess as to who played in the Super Bowl in 1995? This was Super Bowl 29.
Oh, and they play at a neutral location, right?
Right.
So it's not one of the teams. Pittsburgh Pirates and Buffalo Bills.
The Pirates are a baseball team, so no.
That was a test and you passed.
It was the San Francisco 49ers and the San Diego Chargers.
Okay. Well, yeah, look, I feel like this sort of sets the table for this trope perfectly because
Yes.
it is, like we said, it's all about getting the tickets, the idea that a Super Bowl ticket becomes this priceless commodity that all the characters are stepping over each other for. And again, this episode gives us a lot of fun little Seinfeldisms about the regifting and the, I guess in some cases it's really just calling them back. But still, it's very much like, even though it's well into the series, I feel like this is a classic
absolutely.
episode.
This is season 6. We're prime time. I mean, regifting, the whole thing with Risk and all. There were so many amazing moments in this episode.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Married with Children.
Season 11, episode 21, Damn Bundys.
Yeah, so look, this is going to be very much the Bundy family dynamic that we have come to know and love, right?
Yeah, we're 4 episodes from the end of the series.
Okay, all right.
This is like, they're taking a victory lap. They've been on the air for 11 years. Kelly is like 25 now. Bud is in his early 20s. Like they're, everybody has grown up and everyone is like in their groove for sure. They have like their characters are so exact and specific that Marcy Darcy can walk in and have one line, and it's like everybody, they even make a joke like, what we have to do at one point, because they're like parodies of themselves at this point. We're obviously well into the Ted McGinley years as
Jefferson,
as Marcy's hubby. It's not connected with any actual
with the real
Super Bowl exactly that year. This is just Al has so the title of the episode is Damn, D-A-M-N, like they're damned. This is Damn Yankees, except for it's Damn Bundy. So Damn Yankees, the musical, Shoeless Joe makes a deal with the devil to go and be young again and play baseball and get the Washington Senators to win the cup or whatever. I think it is the story or the pennant, not the cup, the pennant is the story of Damn Yankees. So in Damn Bundys, Al sells his soul to the devil,
who is played by none other than Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger himself. This was the reason why I kind of jumped out of my skin to cover this.
Yes.
This is, you're right about Damn Yankees. I always think of this as like the Devil and Daniel Webster story that is in turn inspired by the Faust story.
Yeah.
This is a strong...
Well, Damn Yankees, I think, is based on that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Anything about selling your soul to the devil comes from Faust.
So this whole thing is, he becomes Shoehorn Joe.
Yes, because he is a ladies' shoe salesman.
That's right. Shoehorn Joe, like Shoeless Joe, and he from Damn Yankees, and he sells his soul to the devil in order to take the Bears to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So that's our Super Bowl connection.
Yeah, this all starts because Al and Jefferson are horsing around while they're watching football. They throw the chips to each other like a long pass.
They're like
Al,
Pringles style canister chips.
Yeah, Al dives onto the kitchen table, smashes it, falls on the ground, and importantly, thinks that he continues with his life, but we later find out he has lost consciousness. We get lots of...
we have the Wizard of Oz ending.
Yes, we get lots of great jokes about Peg not knowing what a kitchen table is, not understanding the concept of making and serving food, because that's her whole deal. She's a wife, but she doesn't make dinner. How weird is that, everybody? Again, it's the 90s, and and so that
wasn't okay even in the 90s. So,
and to be fair, when they come back to the situation later on, she is less ridiculous. She does actually know what a kitchen table is. She's
like that flat thing over there. And then later at the end, after Al wakes up and realizes it's all a dream, and you were there. Peg says, you broke the kitchen table, or you broke the dining table.
But and basically...
then she goes, yay, let's go out to dinner.
But right after this happens, Robert Englund shows up as the magical repairman, but then promptly explains that he's Lucifer. Right, that's what he calls himself. Robert Englund, this would be kind of a dormant period for Freddy. So maybe this is why he's doing...
This is 97.
Nightmare on Elm Street, or doing sitcom appearances. So we had Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is a very good installment, in my opinion, in 94.
Okay.
And then it's not until, I think, 2002, 2003 that he's in Freddy versus Jason.
Got it.
So we've got basically like a 10-year Freddy dry spell where, Robert Englund is free to pop up on silly TV appearances. So, fun stunt casting that he's the devil.
I love it. Yeah.
He is, just like you said, he's going to reference all of these Faustian bargain things by saying that you can sell your soul to me and you'll be able to, as Al wishes for. He wants to be a football superstar. We should mention Jefferson has been teasing him. Oh, you only played high school football. You're living in the past. You weren't any good.
Right. And they happen to be watching the NFL draft.
Yeah. And so Al starts with, I want to be the number 1 draft pick. And then I want to take him all the way to the Super Bowl. And basically, that's what happens.
He says, absolutely, I'll sell my soul for that. I get to do that? Okay. But he doesn't wish to be young again.
Yes.
So he is himself. There's no young Joe casting like they do in Damn Yankees, or old age makeup like they would do in Damn Yankees.
Well, first, we see them, like him and his family, watching on TV, and they're like, Dad, it's you. And the commentators are like, in a surprising move, the oldest rookie ever to enter the league, Al Bundy, at, 39 years old, is the first round draft pick. And so, then we get to the most rinky-dink professional football stadium we've ever seen.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We've got the paper signs up for the Fox football things.
Yes.
We've got what I assume, again, going by that
We're literally only seeing a quarter, one little corner of the field, because they have 100% built this on a set. They didn't go outside.
Yes.
They didn't try to get anything outside of the studio.
But they did get real football players. I'm guessing, based on my same logic as from the Donna Reed show, there is a certain acting style that I tend to associate with professional athletes and not working sitcom actors.
Yes. Yeah. You've got some guys that are very likely from the Bears. None of them were super recognizable to me, but they're all wearing the Bears uniforms, which you generally wouldn't get other famous football players to come in and wear Bears uniforms. So my guess is that they were, linemen, whatever, defense guys. So Al Bundy is a fullback, which means he kind of is he's on the line. He does some blocking, but he also can be like a running back, or can catch, not just run, but also can be a receiver. Yeah,
we get Robert Englund popping up again as the hot dog vendor. Everything he says is some sort of pun or joke on being the devil. I've got deviled dogs and deviled hams and whatever, throughout the episode. That's his purpose.
Deviled eggs.
We get a sort of newspaper/magazine montage type thing showing Al's rise to stardom and how just like he wished, he's, dominating through the season. And sure enough, he ends up at the Super Bowl, which is just another scene on this crappy fake football field.
That's right. And just as he's about to, start the game, go to the first huddle at the Super Bowl, who should show up but the devil?
Yes, with his usual loophole, his usual sort of monkey's paw-esque turnaround.
He says, you only wished to, the bargain was to take them here, not to play in the Super Bowl. So it's time. Let's go. And he goes, you can't make me do that. I'm going to play. And he's like, well, then you're going to play without me. And he jogs out to the huddle and immediately is out of breath.
Yes,
and all of his age comes back to him in one foul swoop.
We do not get the magic was in you the whole time kind of thing.
There's no
as
Rudy.
soon as the magic is withdrawn, Al is instantly pummeled and then, I guess, killed.
Yeah, he takes such a hard hit that he dies.
Rises out of his body like Patrick Swayze in Ghost. And, Robert Englund, they do a sort of cheesy effect where they have them like sinking into the ground. And Robert Englund says, this is my hell-elevator.
That's right.
It's like his 75th pun on hell and devil and whatnot. And so they go down to hell and we get a full-on, kind of like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, we get a whole hell set,
That's right.
a whole kind of
This is where they spent their money.
Yes.
Or at least it was a better set.
We have the joke they would love to make in the 90s, the spoofing of the McDonald's, 8,753 people served thing. They have that, but it's people burned.
Yep.
And
Yes, and I noted that it was 750 some million, which I was like, all right, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Al confounds the devil by liking all of the things that are supposed to be torturous to him.
Yeah, this is so dumb, Al. When the devil says you're going to have to eat pigs in a blanket for the rest of your life and then spend all your time on the toilet because they upset your stomach, Al's like, this sounds awesome. What a great place. I'm like, shut up, Al.
Yeah.
Like, you could trick the devil and just be like, oh no, that's terrible.
Right. Not to mention, like, the devil's whole thing is just dumb to begin with. Like, is this really what eternal damnation is? Just like a food that's not good for you? Yeah. And, of course, he says, well, how about this?
I think people with Crohn's would say that is hell. I'm just saying.
Exactly. He's done a terrible job of customizing the torment to the person.
Right.
Because everything he's saying is music to Al's ears. He says you'll never be able to see your family again. And Al is like, that's the best thing I ever heard.
Best news ever.
And so, we sort of flash forward after the act break. Al is playing...
It says 700 years later or something like that.
He's playing hangman with Napoleon, right? We get the sort of Bill and Ted style, like, oh, who are the funny, tyrants and despots and evildoers of history that we can have in the in the thing with him. We have Genghis Khan and whatnot. Yeah. We have the usual jokes, the sitcom jokes. And like the thing of
talking about the Hitler wing and like you have to, the plans. He was telling him he was talking to a architect at the devil was, and he's like, oh, the plans for the Hitler wing are all wrong.
Yeah. And he's got a special like infernal closet or whatever that he says, this is reserved for the IRS auditors, infomercial producers, and mimes, right? Yes. Again, 90s AF that we're ditching on the
beat
mimes.
Up those mimes. What was that movie where it was just clowns chasing mimes around and they were beating each other up?
I don't know.
This was a movie that the guys in my high school were super into, and we watched it at multiple parties. I'm sure there's a listener out there that remembers this movie, but it was like our main characters, like our main protagonists were like a gang of clowns. and they would, drive around and do their things. And then anytime they would see mimes, it was like Anchorman when they saw the other rival networks, they would like stop and rumble and they beat the shit out of each other.
That does not ring a bell
That's so surprising.
at all.
And all of these weird little arty movies that my friends in high school liked, you're usually into.
So, yeah, we get all of that. And then, Al meets his true torment when the devil shows him into a room, and it's his old living room, and his family is there because they all died in, a car accident on the way home from the game? What does he say?
Yeah, gosh, I honestly, I don't remember. There's some weird contrivance to get them.
300 years have passed.
Maybe it was a plane crash or something. And then also Marcy and Jefferson are there.
A beat or two later, they come in. They died also. Peg has hooves, so she can't dial her phone to call for bonbons, right? That was her whole thing. She loved bonbons. Bud has lobster claws, so he's deflated his blow-up girlfriend, right?
It's so hard to be gentle with claws.
We also get a handful of weird CGI gags, right?
Yeah, Kelly turns into a horse when a guy tries to pick her up for a date.
Yeah, and earlier there's a point where, Robert Englund proves he's the devil by, making Al's eyes bug out or something.
Yes, at the very beginning.
Yeah,
he's prove it, and then his eyes spin around in his head like he's...
Yeah, it's kind of like the movie The Mask.
Or I was going to say, Judge Doom.
Yeah, sure. We get another great joke that stands the test of time about Al referring to Marcy's breasts as chicken nuggets. Or he says, you don't have breasts, you only have nuggets. And then Jefferson goes, yeah, and you need 10 of them to make a decent meal. It's just God damn. And so
she is so overly tan in this episode.
Marcy?
Oh, God. She has the worst self-tanner on. She looks like Trump. It's very orange.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fitting for the hell setting, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
I don't know if this goes back to the original Faust myths, or I think of it as the seventh seal, or maybe they have this in Damn Yankees where you can challenge the devil to a match of some sort, a contest, and that's how you get your soul back.
Yes.
And so, of course, it's a football game. This is where we really get the lineup of Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, etc.
Right.
We get the Devil's all-star team of evil brutes, basically. Brutus from Julius Caesar is one of them. And then Al has his family, and they have to play a football game against each other.
And it's sudden death, so it's first score wins.
Yeah. Somewhere along the line, Robert Englund goes, maybe when hell freezes over, we can play hockey.
Yes.
And it's the same delivery as Freddy. It's the same way he does his cheesy Freddy one-liners. And, we get, several of these Married with Children episodes. It ends in this little football game where we get the sort of fake slow motion where they can't even film it in slow motion. They just say run slow, like you're in slow motion. Right. And Lucifer tries to entice Al with the sexy cheerleaders, right?
Yes,
he says, you don't want to really go back to your life. Go back to go with
I'll
these.
send the rest of these guys back and you can just stay with these three hot chicks. Isn't that what you want? Basically offering another bargain that, of course will turn to nothing at the end. And do
you remember how they win the actual football game?
Yeah, he stops. So Freddy stops the ball that is the touchdown pass that they actually were going to finally score after they failed
Al
multiple
had just
times.
legitimately made it happen, gotten free, got the pass, he actually did well football-wise.
Yes. They had done this whole trick play because he had figured out that they were going to try to get the ball to him. So he was like, you guys just keep the ball. And then they kept tossing it back and forth, avoiding the bad guys. And then he said, Jefferson, go long. And so he threw it all the way downfield because he had gotten all the way to the end zone. And so the devil stops time, offers him this bargain of the three, hot cheerleaders. And then his family family, if he drops the ball, and then his family and Marcy and Jefferson are like, come on, Al, don't do it. Catch it for us. You can do it. Come on, Al, catch it. And he falls into the smoke, but decides to catch the ball.
We get, that moment where you don't know if he caught it or not, and then he triumphantly lifts the ball out of the smoke and see he did in fact catch it. They've won. They get to go back to their happy life. And then, like we said earlier, Wizard of Oz ending, or Wayne's World, diddly-doo, right? We flash back to the beginning. He got knocked out when he fell through the kitchen table, and he's back home, and you were there. I had the craziest dream, and it was all a dream, right?
Except he pulls out of his pocket the Real Hots, which are the Devil's brand of Red Hots.
One of 37 different culinary devil jokes that we got throughout the episode. Yeah, so this one, I think it definitely fits the trope. Like we said,
Sure.
It's about him wishing to take the team all the way to the Super Bowl. It's the only one, when you think of it, that we actually see the Super Bowl being played.
Well, because it's not actually tied in with a real Super Bowl that year. It was, because the Bears 100% did not make it to the Super Bowl at any time in the 90s.
Right, because they did not have the help of the devil.
Shoehorn Joe, obviously.
Yes, well,
okay, so this is,
puppet?
though, it doesn't line up with, but it is the same year as Super Bowl 31. Would you like to take a guess?
No.
No? Come on. You're not going to pick some more baseball teams?
Did you listen to me say that I don't know?
It was so much fun to listen to you say the Pirates.
I said the two first football team names that came to mind, and one of them was not. Okay, no, that's fine. I can name other football teams. The Dallas Cowboys.
That is one football team that did not play in this year's Super Bowl.
And the New York Giants.
Good job, but they didn't play in this game either. Super Bowl 31 was the Packers versus the Patriots, and the Packers won.
Oh, those Packers. They know how to do it.
The Packers, by the way, are the arch rivals of the Bears, so it was a little fitting that he was trying to get the Bears there.
Yeah. I guess the only other thing I'll say about this Married with Children is that, we're going to get to Everybody Loves Raymond in a little while. And so, our usual, we always point out how the family dynamics, the relationships of these shows are pretty depressing. I appreciate it, and maybe it is because we're so deep into the series that now this show just wears its misogyny, misanthropy on its sleeve. It's cynicism, it's just so silly that even though it is dated and ugly, it's like you can't even really be offended by it compared to Raymond later, where they're sort of trying to pose real relationship dynamics, and it's just like, get out of here.
Yeah, this is such a problem.
Well, yeah, it's just so cartoonish and silly that when he actually makes the choice at the end, his heart is in the right place. You're just like, yeah, great. It's like the end of a cartoon or something.
It is. That's exactly what I was going to say. It is, how we talk about, some of these shows that have like a Steve Urkel or Dynamite, Kid Dynamite and whatever.
Screech.
Exactly. Screech. They end up, and Saved by the Bell didn't actually get to this, but definitely Family Matters, where it was like everything was just a setup for Urkel's next joke. They let writing go out the door, and it was just, let this guy have a moment. This show, Married with Children, at this point, 4 episodes from the end of the series, they are caricatures of themselves, but every single one of them is just getting set up for the joke you already knew that they were going to make ahead of time. And it's just like, a person walks into the room and you know what the setup is going to be. Oh, Kelly's a whore. Oh, Bud likes to sleep with plastic women. Al hates his wife and wishes he was still a football player. You know what I mean? It's just like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, there was never a change in the vibe of Married with Children. There was never one character that broke out. There was never the basic setup stayed exactly the same. They just kept digging in. Just make her more slutty, make him more stupid, make her more horny, whatever
exactly.
it is. And so, it's like the family itself. Yeah, for better or worse, they're in it together. Like they and their relationships with each other are what the show lives and dies on. That's what it's making fun of.
Yeah. And I think at this point in the series where everything was so tight, they just knew what they were doing. Not that it was like good tight. It is very cheesy, cartoony tight, but it is just, it's a machine. Like we know, like set up joke, set up joke, set up joke, same jokes. And it's because of that, I think it's more palatable than it was in some of the earlier episodes that we've watched where it's like, are they gonna have you remember we had this whole conversation where I asked you, I was like, do they ever really have a heart?
Yes. And this was sort of what I said, is that a lot of times it comes down to, well, they have to unite as a family against a common enemy. And that's very much what happens here.
Yeah.
And we do get, for what it's worth, some kind of sentimental ending.
Absolutely. And I'm never mad about a Broadway parody. Like, I'm here for it.
Yeah. I'm never mad about an appearance by Robert Englund. So let's move on to The Simpsons.
Season 10, episode 12, Sunday Cruddy Sunday.
Yeah, so this is our second episode this week that is going to focus on the postal system, right? In standard Simpsons fashion, they always have their little Act 1 fake-out story that leads you into the main story. And in this case, it's a school trip to the post office, right? So we get lots of little post office jokes. It's funny now to think that in the 90s, there was that whole thing of the disgruntled postal worker going postal. Yes,
yeah, they make a joke about that.
Yes, they do.
Which turn out to be one of these Simpsons, you were prophetic and you didn't even know it. So this episode aired 3 months before the Columbine High School shooting.
Yeah.
Which, at least in my world, was like the first major school shooting.
Yes. Yeah.
This episode airs in April. That happened in the beginning of the school year, I think, or maybe towards the end of the school year. And the principal makes a joke about going postal and disgruntled postal workers showing up and shooting up post offices. And his joke is, thank goodness I work at an elementary school. And my heart just hurt.
Yes, and that's not the only dark humor here. There is another sort of intentionally creepy joke when Krusty, who's there for some reason, even though it's a school trip for kids, he sees the Fatty Arbuckle stamp that they're
all
premiering.
Of the Legends of Comedy on a stamp.
And he goes, what did Fatty Arbuckle do that I haven't done? Which, in case you don't know, Fatty Arbuckle was an old-timey movie star who was implicated in the death of a Hollywood actress and was this was the first major Hollywood scandal.
I don't think I knew this. Will you tell me this story?
I mean, it's a very dark story, but basically this Hollywood star was found dead and raped, arguably, in the hotel room. Arbuckle said it wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. I went to the bathroom. I came out. She was on the floor. He was ultimately acquitted of the crime and, little by little reinstated back into Hollywood. And the jury not only acquitted him, but apologized to him. Many people still believed he was guilty. To this day, it is unknown what happened in that hotel room. But
I know what happened in that hotel room. His next door neighbor was John Goodman, who is actually the devil.
Oh, a la Barton Fink.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever it is, before Weinstein, before Cosby, we had Fatty Arbuckle and his scandal. So that's the joke there. But anyway, this is all to get us to the plot point that the kids get to raid the dead letter office.
Yeah.
They each get to pick a piece of discarded mail that was undeliverable and bring it back home. And Bart picks A coupon book.
Yes. He was like, great, what the heck am I going to do with this? And then he was like, aha, cut scene to, here's a present for you, Homer. Happy birthday.
Yeah, another regifting.
That's right. And Homer's like, yes, this is amazing.
He loves it.
So like all of this, it's so funny. We haven't even got to the Super Bowl yet. Like we have all of
That's
these
how
scenes
The Simpsons
just like
works.
walking you into this story.
There's always like a fake out thing where it's going to be about they have to spend the night in the haunted mansion. And then that turns out that was all just a thing to get us to, buying a lawnmower or whatever it is.
So, Homer is all excited. He's going to use all of his coupons.
He says he's going to paint the town red with savings.
That's right. And he, negs Marge, who wants to use one of the coupons for foot pain. He's like, that's just a ploy to get you to fix your foot pain. And she limps out of the room.
Hobbles out of the room.
And then, of course, that is what all of these coupon books are. And he gets talked into having a full, buying 4 new tires
he
when
goes
he
to the
just went in
tire
for a
shop.
little rotation.
Yes, I thought that this depiction of the tire shop waiting room was very
so accurate.
Yes,
like
very
every
on
Jiffy
point.
Lube ever.
Yes, the crappy little TV in the corner, the magazines, the cow, just the whole sort of weirdly
Grimy,
unpleasant nature of it. And yeah, of course, the whole thing is a bait and switch. He's conned by these tire guys into thinking that he desperately needs new tires, and they can't legally even let him leave the store without getting his whole car revamped.
That's right.
And that's where he meets Wally Kogan.
Mm-hmm.
Took me a few minutes to identify this very distinctive voice. It's Fred Willard,
Yes.
who was definitely on fire in the late 90s. He was popping in the Christopher Guest movies and showing up all over the place.
Yes, some of you younger people might know him from Pitch Perfect.
Okay, and so he commiserates with Homer. Yeah, I'm a big dummy too. They got me for another tire rotation, etc. And then what? Wally just has all these Super Bowl tickets.
Right, so they're commiserating about how the last time they saw each other, they were getting taken advantage of. Now they've both been taken advantage of again at this tire shop. And he's like, but hey, don't worry. I've got, I got all these tickets and I got a bus that's going. So if you can help me fill this bus, they had just finished talking about how they were taken in by a pyramid scheme the first time they met each other. Now he's pitching another thing that sounds exactly like some kind of pyramid scheme, but he's like, hey, help me fill this bus and you can go for free. And so then we get the montage of Homer going all around town, talking to all of his friends and, acquaintances to try to fill the bus full of people who want to go down to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there's the great scene where he's on the phone and he's telling Lisa all the people that he's recruited, and it's just all the wacky cast of characters. The sea captain, the bumblebee man, the comic book guy, right?
Yes.
Nobody has a name in Springfield except for Lenny and Carl. And, this is another case of women have no interest in the Super Bowl, right? Only men could be interested in going to this. And so, yeah, he recruits this whole, gaggle of 20 or so guys. They make the joke that they're all letting their guts spill out.
Because no ladies for 3 days.
Yeah, but then when they get on the bus, they see there's like a sexy female bus driver, and so they're like,
They'll have to
we
suck
gotta
their guts back
pack
in.
the guts back in. Yeah, we get a reference to Rudy, which would have been a relatively new movie at this time. We get short little Rudy running after the bus. He goes, what I lack in athleticism, I make up for in annoyingness, right? And they're like, no, Rudy, get out of here. And they all make their way via bus to the Super Bowl. Now we get another instance. We get a handful of celebrity cameos.
Oh yeah, this
here.
is like chock full of celebrity cameos. So this episode, Fox was airing the Super Bowl this year. Mm-hmm. This is the same year that Family Guy premieres.
Okay.
The initial episode, very first episode of Family Guy premieres directly following the Super Bowl. So then directly following that episode, you get this Simpsons episode.
Yeah, and so there's a handful of professional football players doing voice cameos, just like in Married with Children. Does Rosie Greer and his makeshift chapel mean anything to you? There's a joke that Ned is like, Ned Flanders, like, what am I going to do? I'm away from church. Oh, don't worry. There's a church here. And Rosie Greer is performing the sermon.
Yeah. So I think I could be totally wrong, but I like Rosie Greer. I think is a football player, and maybe that was but I could be totally making that up, have complete,
Fair enough. I was stupefied
hallucination
by this
on my thing.
reference.
But so all of these things it's the tailgating area and all of the, bananas things that pop up around the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So you've got Dan Marino as himself doing hey, catch a football from Dan Marino, pay $100 and do that. And you've got all these different things kind of happening, and all of the celebrity cameos are there.
Dan Marino, I of course know from his turn on Ace Ventura.
Oh, is that how you know who it is?
That's pretty much it.
You got Troy Aikman. Later on, we'll see John Madden, and Pat Summerall. They're the
commentators.
They're the commentators. They do like a recap at the end. You also have a cameo from Rupert Murdoch. They initially they were going to have Castaneda, one of the guys, Dan Castaneda, or however you say his name, as he's done a Rupert Murdoch impression on the show before, so they were going to just have him do it. And then they reached out to Murdoch's people, and his line is, "I'm a something tyrant or whatever. I'm a media tyrant or something." He thought it was hilarious, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to do that. Yes. I'll do the cameo."
I was surprised by that. There are lots of Dolly Parton's going to show up. The only one that doesn't actually play themselves is Bill Clinton when he gets his little spot. That's just one of the voices. But yeah, this Rupert Murdoch thing, he sounds like someone just doing a lame, like Robin Leach-esque accent. And so I just thought it was, Azaria or one of the standard guys. I didn't think that was the real the real
famously
Rupert.
The chairman of the Fox network, right? Or, of all the Fox properties.
And famously pretty not great guy.
Yeah, kind of evil, exactly, which was why it was funny that he was like, "I'm a tyrant," and he was like, "Yeah, sure."
Yes, we didn't know yet the extent to which.
We kind of did. We're in the run up to the election. We get a couple election jokes. So this is April '99. We've been a year into the Monica Lewinsky scandal. The House has just impeached President Clinton. So there's this joke early on where they're talking about the Super Bowl at the bar, and they've got Mo and who's the barfly?
Barney,
and they're there, and they cover their mouths with the beer mugs so they can later dub in the Super Bowl, the people or the teams that are going to the Super Bowl. But then they make the exact same joke about, and I hear the president and his wife will be there, and they cover their mouths with the mugs because it was still a question mark as to whether or not Clinton was going to get actually removed from office after he was impeached.
Right.
Then they made an election joke as well, an impeachment and an election joke, by having Al Gore measuring for curtains.
Which truly tragic. This notion
it broke
that
my heart.
Of course Al Gore.
And we can blame frickin' Murdoch for that, because the rise of Fox News is what allowed GWB to push through and have a fake win in Florida. Now you're hearing all of my politics.
Yeah.
I was covering that election in Florida for NBC at the time, and let me tell you, there were some shenanigans.
Yes, we're all familiar with the election of 2000, and the joke about Al Gore, fitting the windows for his drapes or whatever, it hits home. It brings a tear to
Between
one's
that
eye.
and the Columbine not Columbine joke, I was like, I don't know if I can go back to this pre 9/11 innocence.
Yeah, but we get the plot turn that when the whole gang goes to get into the Super Bowl, they discover that their tickets are counterfeit.
Yes.
The ticket taker says, well, look, you can see here, there's no hologram. This team on the ticket doesn't exist, and they are printed on crackers. And he proceeds to eat one of the crackers in this sort of jolly way, like, yeah, you see? And so, the guys are stranded without a way to get in. Now, there are a couple of fun little fake out jokes here. Earlier on, Homer has one of his little fantasy sequences, and they make you think it's going to be the thing of he's called in to play in the game because, like, the player on the team, you know, they're down somebody and they go, "Hey, you in the crowd," as though he's going to, you know, live his dream like Al Bundy. And then it turns out to just be something else. And then this time, Homer's like, "Hey, I have an idea." And he sees the rack of costumes, like the marching band costumes or whatever. So you think it's going to be that standard dumb thing where they all, you know, like the Wizard of Oz, they don the costumes of, you know, the people who are allowed to go. But instead it's just like, "Hey, yeah, let's use this costume rack to smash the door," or whatever it is. And they end up in Super Bowl jail, basically, because they're quickly apprehended.
That's right. That's when they meet Dolly Parton, because she's on her way out to do the halftime show. And she's like, "Aw, y'all, that's so sweet. I'll let you out. No problem."
Homer thinks that she's a cleaning lady, but then Wally recognizes her. He has some kind of connection with her. They also have, at the beginning of one of these acts, in between commercials, they have the parody commercial that is still just as true now as it was in the 90s.
Oh, but it's censored.
The weird Jesus commercial.
Okay, well, so we see, and because we watched it on Disney Plus, we're seeing the censored version. After that episode originally aired, the line is "the church, we've made changes." The original line is "the Catholic Church, we've made some changes." And the Catholic League got all up in arms, and they're like, "Why are you beating up on us?" You know, and The Simpsons was basically like, "What do you mean? Why are we beating up on you? We beat up on everybody." Like, it's, you know, all are welcome to be skewered here on The Simpsons. But Fox agreed, and they basically caved and said, "We can change it to the church instead of the Catholic Church, because then it really is not singling you guys out." And the writer for this episode was real pissed about that. And then it was censored in all subsequent syndication, and is still currently censored on Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's funny. To me, the joke was more, I mean, you have the Catholic Church, the molesting priests and all that, but to me it was just like these commercials that still air, where you're watching this thing and you're like, what the hell is this a commercial for? It's just like, you know, people and places and things, and then like at the very end, the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you know, like now it's not the Catholic Church doing the commercials. It's usually like things like that, you know.
Well, so this one is parodying a couple of different things, but it's the over-sexualized commercials that were really popular and still can be really popular. But specifically, I think it was like a Cindy Crawford commercial where she's pumping gas. Yeah. And so it's that same like old-timey Texaco station. That's where they are. They've got these three women that are all busty, and they get out of the car, and then the priest gets out of the car, and they're like, "Hey," or they don't get out. They come out of the gas station to help the priest, and he's like, "Auga." Yeah. And so they're pumping gas and, you know, cleaning the windshield and doing all the things with their boobs out. And then the camera like zooms in on her cross that's dangling between her very ample breasts. And in the background, you see her navel because she's wearing a midriff. And it's like, "The church, we've made some changes." And then it goes to Lisa sitting on the couch with her mom watching the Super Bowl commercials, and she was like, "Why are these commercials so weird?"
Yes, and they are weird. But speaking of big boobs, Dolly Parton lets them out of the holding cell with her makeup remover that she says, you know, it's got some ingredient that can melt the lock. Yes, it's her
industrial makeup remover, and it also melts the lock.
Yeah, and so then she's like, "All right, that's it for me. I have to go perform at the Super Bowl." And she puts on like a Snoopy jetpack and like, you know, jets out of there.
Like she's gonna, you know, parachute in.
Yes. And we get a very, I think, sort of off-brand 90s needle drop. The Blur Song 2 starts playing, right?
Yeah.
That woo-hoo song that everybody loves to throw into movies when you want some sort of like chaotic scene. I mean, The Simpsons definitely would do this from time to time, but it was always kind of strange because it just so much of it was that Danny Elfman sort of orchestral score that when things like this happened, it always always seem weird. But we get them kind of running around the halls. They're all, where do we go? How do we get to the stadium? And then they end up in the skybox, right? The sort of, fancy thing that Rupert Murdoch gets to watch the game from.
Right.
And that's when he shows up and says, what are you doing in my skybox?
Exactly. And then after that, they make some deal with him that they can stay, and then he says no, and so they have to run again.
This is where he takes a call from President Clinton in the skybox. That's where we get our Clinton, Clinton moment, or one of several.
That's where we get the one where Al Gore's measuring the curtains.
Okay.
They have to run again. There's like they have to run out of the box that they're in, and they end up on the tunnel out to the field. And they're like, we're going to get to watch the Super Bowl. Yeah, it's going to be so great. And they start to run out on the field, and that's actually the game's over. So the team kind of runs them all over because they're coming back in, and they end up in the winning team's locker room during the party for like the celebration after the game.
Yes, because Rupert Murdoch had yelled, seize them, a la Skeletor or something, to get his guys to run after them. Yeah, and so, it reminds me in a sense of one of the other Simpsons episode we covered on our road trips episode where Bart and his friends had his adventure. It's a similar thing, right? They're going off on this trip. They're kind of getting in trouble. It has that, sort of adventurous spirit, but I feel like already, this is season 10, which for most sitcoms would be well into its run. But in the case of The Simpsons, we're like barely scratching the surface.
Right?
Yeah. But I remember watching this probably when it first came out. What year did you say this was?
99.
Yeah. So I was in college already. I was not watching them, every week, but I was still definitely a fan and keeping up with it. And I remember my friends and I were already sort of at the point of like, yeah, it's starting to deflate a little bit. Things like the joke about covering their mouths so they can insert the dialogue later. Like they had made that joke before. They're starting to sort of go back to the well on certain bits of humor and going like, oh, that worked so well in season 6. Let's use it again.
That's so funny. So basically what you're saying is kind of what John Madden and
yes.
what's his face were saying. The other commentator was saying at the end that it just didn't quite live up to its earlier promise at the beginning of the episode. Like it started strong and then kind of, and Pat Summerall's the other guy, and kind of like dwindled toward the end.
It's very funny. They do the same joke they did in a sense with the Siskel and Ebert episode, unless that was The Critic. I feel like it was a crossover between The Critic and The Simpsons. I'm not sure which show it was on, but they have Siskel and Ebert as guest voices in the story, and then it ends with sort of zoom out and Siskel and Ebert are reviewing the episode that you just saw. In this case, they have, John Madden and the other guy doing the football commentary on the episode. But the funny thing is the way, like, they sort of changed their tune. John Madden is like, this was great, solid performances for everybody. And, Marge and Lisa's B story really gave them good ground. And then the other guy goes, yeah, but didn't you think it was weird that in an episode about the Super Bowl with Dolly Parton, we didn't see any football or singing? Yeah. And that's when John Madden goes, you know what? You're right. All these fans that have put up with so much from this franchise, and
totally turns the other way. He's like, this is a ripoff. I'm too mad. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
It's kind of that's how the episode ended.
But so in terms of tracking the trope, this is definitely keeping alive and well this idea that it's all about the tickets, right?
Yeah.
The precious tickets, and that, when you get the Super Bowl tickets, you're on your way, but there still might be more adventure in store.
There was another tragic event that kind of coincides with the filming of the production of this episode. Okay. The first day of the table read, word got out that Phil Hartman had been murdered. And so they canceled the table read because so many of the people involved in this show actually knew him.
Well, he was on the show. He's Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure, and he was, he wasn't one of the regular cast, but he was a frequent pop-in to do these little voices. Yes, horrible thing that happened.
99,
right.
what
We've
a
touched
year.
on, quite a lot of tragic things.
So we've got to touch on it. Super Bowl 33, who was in it.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of if there's any other teams that I can name. I'm trying to think of major cities. The Jets. The
Yes.
Jets.
Okay. So in this episode, they name who was in it.
I know, but it's all nonsense to me.
It was the part where they covered their mouths with the beers.
The Jets and the Cleveland.
Ooh, do you know who the team from Cleveland, Jay?
I mean, I want to say Cavaliers, but of course that's basketball. The Cleveland Bucks.
Oh, not at all. But it does start with a B. So
Browns?
The Cleveland Browns, that's right. But they were not in the Super Bowl. In fact, I think it's been a real long time since the Browns have been in a Super Bowl. One of those kind of cursed teams.
Yeah.
So Super Bowl 33 was the Falcons, Atlanta Falcons versus the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos almost made it to the Super Bowl this year. They just got beat out last weekend. So the Broncos won.
All right. I feel like this recurring bit has got to be infuriating to people who like football and know
But
what
it's
the
really
teams
funny to me to watch you squirm.
All right. Moving on to Everybody Loves Raymond.
Season 5, episode 13, Super Bowl.
Yeah, so this starts right out the gate, cold open. Ray finds out via telephone call that his paper, he's a sports journalist, is sending him to Tampa for the Super Bowl press conference. He gets a ticket for himself and his friend to attend the Super Bowl. And this is going to be the first of several...
Well, him and a guest.
Yeah, a guest. First of several plot points in this episode that I feel like are a genuine, like a real genuine sort of dilemma, but just handled in a way that makes it feel stupid and not credible.
Well, you mean the way Ray Romano's show always does?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So he's in the house when he gets this phone call with his brother, his parents, his wife, Deborah, and his friend Gianni.
I remember. Robbie.
And his friend Gianni, and he just decides immediately, okay, great, me and Gianni can go to the game. And he gives the tickets to his friend.
Yeah, this friend who, by the way, I've never seen before.
No, but we also are not big fans of this show. I assume we're in, season 5? I assume that maybe this guy wasn't around from the start, but that he's become,
He's like the shortest dude. He's shorter than Deborah.
Well, okay. I mean, Ray and Brad Garrett are both pretty tall, and Peter Boyle for that matter. So, a lot of people are going to look diminutive near them. But yeah, he's a friend. I just assumed, you got everyone else's family members. You got to have at least one friend on these shows. And so he automatically gives the ticket to his friend, and then everybody is mad at him.
Right. Everybody except his mom, but then his mom is like mad on behalf of the brother.
Well, she ultimately gives him the guilt trip that she says is not a guilt trip. She just wants a chance that her family could be happy.
Right. Because she's horrible. So he gives the ticket to Gianni. They're all happy and celebrating. And then Robert and the dad are just like staring him down. And he's like, well, it was the only option, because you two would have fought over it. And Robert is like, no, because at least then you would have given it to a family member. And his dad's holding a fork and he's like, I'm going to stab you. Give me my ticket. Yeah.
So Robert and the dad are both angry about that. And then when they leave, Deborah is like, what the hell? Sure, I don't really like the Super Bowl, but this is a vacation. This is an opportunity.
Away.
Yeah. And so everybody feels sort of entitled. So this is sort of what I mean by the credible dilemma, where like the way it all plays out and all the dialogue and stuff is kind of dumb in typical Raymond fashion. But this is like, I don't know that I have an easy answer for like who you would take in this scenario.
Well, I was going to ask you, let's say, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be the Super Bowl because in our situation, I would be the one who you would definitely take because I am into that more than you are. But like something equivalent, right? Having to do with work, some sort of, filmy convention, whatever.
Yeah.
Who would you take a friend if you knew that they were like super into it? Would you take me?
Yeah.
And this is not a trap.
No, it's honestly hard to say because to
or
me,
your brother.
It really just comes down to the event itself and the different people's enthusiasm for it. We have here in the world of Everybody Loves Raymond, it's assumed that at least Gianni, Robert, and Peter Boyle are all very, very interested in attending the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Any sort of example that I try to think of, it's like, well, if it was anything to do with like movies or music and stuff, I would probably take my brother. If there's something, there'd be certain things that specifically would lend themselves to going with my dad. I think Deborah's point is pretty valid. Yeah. But I think in our case, we do a lot of vacationing and traveling and stuff.
Right.
And so I wouldn't necessarily feel like you had a major leg to stand on in terms of like, you've got to take me because we'd never get a chance to do this.
Right. And Deborah's point is a little different. Like, hey, we never spend time just us because they're, the kids and the parents living next door and all of these things, they really just don't get time together as a couple, which is a common complaint with people who have kids. Obviously, we're not in that situation. But I mean, I just think about, when we were touring around with your film, that was us. You know what I mean? We did a lot of it. Sometimes, there was the one trip you tried to get your brother to go. He is a man with kids and a family and a job, and so wasn't really able to make that fit into his busy life.
But again, that was a case to me of like any one of my family members or friends might have enjoyed that, but that was really sort of like my thing with a +1.
Right,
and to
exactly.
me, it's intuitive to just, you bring your spouse or whatever. And what's kind of funny in this case is that Raymond is making the case, and I think he really believes this, of like, hey, look, this isn't a thing for wives,
Right.
This is a work thing. We're going, it's all going to be me and the other smelly guys doing our sports writing and stuff. This just like, it's almost kind of like inappropriate for me to bring you along.
Sure. And I think he, point well made until he arrives at the event and realizes that every one of his colleagues from the other papers that have been sent there have brought their wives. And he immediately feels like an asshole and calls Deborah, gets her on a plane, flies her in. And this is where Gianni starts acting like a whiny little baby.
I'll say I was impressed with Ray, though, with this. They start doing the thing of like all the wives are going, oh, where's Deborah? Why isn't she here? And Ray is kind of fibbing. And she says, one of the other wives who I guess works with Deborah goes, oh, I'll have to tell
knows
her
her
all
from
about
school.
it. Yeah. And so I think this is setting us up for another big lie story where Ray has to, constantly connive. And he's going to figure out some scheme to trick her or whatever. But no, the next scene is he has made the decision. Oh, okay, I was wrong. I'm going to call Deborah after all. And so at least on that point, he handles it pretty well.
Yeah. And he has this idea, right? Because he's talked to this woman. This woman, I have seen her before. She is one of Deborah's friends. Mm-hmm. She is married to another sports journalist, and their kids all go to the same school. So she knows her from the school pickup. So, in the events being, school room moms and stuff. And so there's all of these things for the quote unquote wives to do.
Yeah. We should mention before he left, Raymond tells Deborah like, oh, look, I wouldn't want to tag along if you were going to your things. And he has the most condescending examples. He's like, if you went to a Pottery Barn championship, I wouldn't ask you to go to that. Just the most lame concepts of what women would be interested in.
No, I mean, whatever. Like at this point, it's totally expected for like Ray to just be a complete imbecile about what his wife is interested in and not at all see her point that it's about spending time together. No surprise at all. all there, was, like you said, pleasantly surprised that he was like, oh, this is, you know what? I'm going to put Deborah on a plane. I'm going to get her down here. Like, she should be here. She is glowing. She's so happy when she gets there. And then, and you know, it's all these little like jokes about how if they're going to actually have hotel sex and whatever. And then the next morning comes and Deborah realizes that she is being sent off to wife daycare all day while Ray still goes golfing, hangs out with the guys, does all the Super Bowl stuff.
We get, like you mentioned briefly, there's the part where when she first comes, Gianni is all mopey and put out, which feels like one of the more contrived story elements. He's like, oh, I need to sleep on this cot with the other guy.
And
he
was going to sleep on the cot anyway, because he and Ray weren't going to sleep in the same bed.
Yeah, and I mean, look, at the end of the day, he still got to go to the Super Bowl for free. Like, him being so mopey doesn't make a lot of sense. Importantly, Ray and Deborah do have sex in the hotel, because that sort of sets up part of why she's so upset in this next scene. And this was another part where, again, I feel like a sort of credible conflict, but just handled in a weird way. So Ray and the guys and their wives are all sort of planning out how the day is going to go. And they're like, yeah, we're going to go, you know, they have to go to work. They have like a work thing and some sort of like golf game or something.
Yeah. So there's a press event, but then they're going to go golfing all day. Like that is, and so it's like the guys have a guy thing that they're going to do. And then the women have a, you know, girly craft fair that they're going to go to.
And they're like, okay, no problem. We'll meet you for dinner. And the guys are like, oh no, we're probably not gonna be able to make it to that. We've got to do X, Y, and Z. So you guys have fun without us.
Right. Well, so, and here's the thing. Ray is trying not to let Deborah know that they're going golfing. He keeps talking about the press conference and that they have to work. And then the other husband is like, yeah, well, we will be a little bit late if we do want to meet back up for dinner because we're going to be golfing for a long time. And Ray's like, you know, and that's when Deborah gets mad. She realizes what's going on. So this is what bothers me, because later on, he acts like in their argument that's about to start, he acts like he didn't realize that she was being shunted off into like wife daycare. But he did know, because he didn't want her to know he was going golfing on top of his work event.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't pick up on like, or at least I don't remember the sort of secret element of the golf
He is
aspect of it.
selectively not mentioning it over and over again. And when the other husband mentions it, that's when Deborah, like the mad face comes. She's like, no, I'm not going to be going to the International Craft Fair. I'm not going to be getting on a shuttle. And she shuts herself in the bathroom.
Yeah, and that's part of why I think this whole thing is kind of silly the way it plays out. We have the usual sitcom thing of like, I am happy and then I am angry and not speaking with you. And there's no in between.
She recognizes that she's being managed.
Well, here's the thing. And that's why I say it's important that they have sex in the previous scene, because that plays into it. I'm initially thinking like, I don't know, like, I get that you want to have dinner with him, but this is a work trip. Like, to me, I think she would still see this as like a net positive, like, oh, they all get to do their separate gendered things during the day and then they hang out at night.
No,
but she adds the extra element of, I guess I'm your Super Bowl whore because you just want to come back and sleep with me.
Well, but she doesn't add that element. I'm totally on Deborah's side on this. She doesn't add that element. He does. He is purposefully not telling her that he's playing golf for the entire day after the press conference, which is only about an hour long. He's saying he's not going to see her until tonight when we get to come back here, and gets all grabby with her. And she's like, what the hell am I, your Super Bowl whore? Get the fuck off of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's not having it, because that is disrespectful. Let me fly in my girlfriend. Let me fly in my wife, right? Like, let me fly you in because all the other wives are here. I'm not going to see you all day. I don't want to hang out with you. I'm still going to do all the things I was going to do when you weren't here because I didn't come here to be with you. But better make sure you keep my bed warm at night. No, thank you, Ray.
Yeah, exactly. That is the element that makes it more than just like, oh, she wants to spend more time with him. He wants to spend less. It's the idea that, yes, she now feels cheap in addition to all this other stuff. And so, yeah, I think she does have a point. It's just the whole thing is frustrating because it's so close to being like an acceptable arrangement.
Well, and this is the reason, though, that makes Ray's getting flustered during this argument really fun. Like, I think exactly that, like, narrow threading the needle thing that they've done here, where he like really tried and like outside of his character was like, let me, you know what? I made a mistake. Let me call Deborah. Let me get her here. It'll be great. And we like, all of us were shocked.
Well,
we're
it's
like,
debatable.
Oh, wow.
Did he do it for that reason or because he knows that he couldn't get away with it and she would find out no matter what?
Either way, he's done something nice for whatever reasons. And so he is like, wait a minute, how can you possibly be mad? I've done the right thing here. And then he tries again to do the right thing and again misguided by saying, well, I just won't go to the Super Bowl. And she's like, no, I'm not asking you not to go to the Super Bowl. I'm asking you to hang out with me when you aren't working. Like, please go to the Super Bowl. Please do all the work things that you have to do and have fun. Like, you have this plan to have fun with your friend. Do all those things. But in the times that you're not doing those things, let's do fun stuff, just us. And he totally doesn't get it. He's one of these guys that's like, men and women cannot be friends. The only reason men and women should hang out is so that they can have sex.
Yeah, and he's got the gene from his mom of the sort of guilt trip impulse of like, well, I guess I'll just rip up the Super Bowl tickets. I guess that's what you want.
Which he does like a moron. And then she gets even more mad because she's like, now I'm the wife that made you rip up your Super Bowl tickets.
Yeah.
I didn't want that. What are you doing? And he's like, I'm doing what you want. And she's like, you're doing the opposite of what I want.
Yes. And again, it's all very silly because if everybody didn't just go immediately from 0 to 60 in 10 seconds, it's avoidable. Like,
yeah, but it is like a 20-minute show, so they kind of have to.
But it's just that thing of like to me, it would be fine if he went to the press conference, whatever, golf game or whatever, like, all she had to say was like, I don't know, you sure you can't have dinner? You can't, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like asking Deborah to be more reasonable in this situation is the wrong move. Also, I think that this is more realistic than you're giving it credit for, right? Like, you and I have 100% had arguments where you're like, oh, well, fine then. I guess I'll just never da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, nope, that's not what I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's true. That's why I see the human, nature in this. But again, everybody just has to immediately go to the extreme of, I'm going to storm out of the room. I'm going to rip up the tickets. Like, nobody can just
I'm
like
gonna pack
be
and go
reasonable.
Home. I think, but look, again, I push back a little bit on the Deborah's not being reasonable. Deborah's feelings are hurt. She is feeling taken advantage of. And she says, I'm not going to fight with you, Ray. Like, if you want to have a weekend with your friends and do all of this guy stuff and not have a weekend with me, I'm just going to go home because I'd rather not be here feeling sad that I'm here and not with you. I'd rather just be home doing my own thing, right?
Yeah.
And have a weekend without you, which is also fine.
Yeah. If anything, it's also just a little weird that none of the other wives like have this stance. Everyone else.
Well, I think we're to posit that the other wives do get to spend time with their husbands, right? Like the other husband isn't the one that says, "Hey, we're going to be out late and we're not going to be able to meet you for dinner." He says, "We are going to be golfing, but we can probably meet up for dinner after." And that's the turning point, right? Yeah. They are doing things together. They never, like, their wives never got the, hey, you're not going to this from the get-go. And the other husband even says, I'm going to go to the craft fair for a little while, but then I'm going to go to the press conference. So he is making time over and over again. We get these other guys like making better choices than Ray.
Yeah. And so, yes, it does amount to the usual sort of point of view of this show, which is like, women, you can't please them. You can't do anything right. All they want is to, follow you everywhere and ruin the fun. And so, yes.
Well, so I don't know that this episode is taking that point of view. Like, this one, to me, Deborah was so reasonable and reasoned that, because other times she's not. Like, other times they definitely make her a caricature and they do the, thing that's parodied in all of the, Kevin can fuck himself and all of the commentary that we've had around these shows. But so I think in this one, though, Deborah, it does come off as the...
You're right. Yeah, correct. I just mean in the sense that it's still from Ray's point of view of like, I can't figure out how to make her happy. You know, just that thing of like, oh, my wife, oh no.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
And so the last scene is Ray and Deborah and Gianni on their bed watching the Super Bowl on TV.
Yeah, from the hotel room.
Just like so many of these, the sort of vague sound effects of like the from the crowd and the commentators and stuff.
Because Deborah makes this point as well. She's like, you just tore up Gianni's ticket as well. Are you going to tell him that? And he's like, oh, I'll blame it on you. And she rolls her eyes, you know. Yeah. And so then we have the three of them it starts with the two of them on the couch on the bed watching the Super Bowl. Deborah's asleep on Ray's chest, and then the camera zooms out, and Gianni's sitting on the other half of the bed, just glaring at Ray for tearing up his Super Bowl ticket.
Yes, he was very, very stupid. I mean, even I, with no desire to go to the Super Bowl whatsoever, was frustrated on everybody's behalf watching him rip up the tickets. It's very stupid.
Yeah. And also, wasn't that an assignment from your job? If you don't go to the Super Bowl, what are you doing?
Yeah, the way he sets it up at the start, I kind of got the impression that like his duties had to do with leading up to the Super Bowl, and then he could actually attend it just as a fan. But I'm not gonna, swear on that.
Yeah, I feel like that. I mean, if you're paying to send your sports reporter to the Super Bowl, then you get them a press pass and they're in the press room. Yeah, it says something. What it is he says, they're sending me to cover the Super Bowl press conference. So I think technically that's his assignment. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't really make much sense. I had in my notes throughout this whole show, it's almost the vibe I get from the Nickelodeon shows where, somebody says something, the studio audience / canned laugh track laughs, and I'm like, what are they laughing at? Just some of the jokes. I forget who even says it. One is the loneliest number. That line gets a laugh early in the episode. Like there are these weird cliche laughter. Like that's weird.
Yeah, they're just these like non-jokes. I also just want a quick observation. I don't think that this was always what they had, but at this point in season 5, the opening little theme sequence of this.
I hate this version. They had this for a few seasons.
I would argue this is one of the worst intros I've ever seen. Usually, of course you have some of the TV shows that don't even have the open anymore. They just have the title.
Right.
That's fine. But a lot of times, especially in the 90s and earlier, you would have the little song. And to me, what is so good about a good intro sequence is that the music, you start to get this like Pavlovian effect of it, like whether it's a Mary Tyler Moore or the Office theme song.
Yeah.
My favorite example, even though it's not a sitcom, is The State on MTV, where they had this grungy alternative rock song that would always start with this one drum hit. And so they would have the very silly cold open, and then as soon as the guy said the ridiculous line, and then, the song would start.
Malcolm in the Middle is a favorite.
Yeah, Big Bang Theory. And with this, it's like a little scene. So it always is
sucks.
Confusing. The cold open stops, and then it starts on silence, and it's another scene in their living room that's completely disconnected from the story you're watching.
Right. You get this shot of Ray just sort of looking out the window, and it looks like it's going into the next scene, but then you get this like rear window zoom
this
pan
lame
thing.
After Effects, like fakey zoom effect. Yeah, with the rest of the family, the brother and the parents coming from across the street.
And do you know the classical music piece?
It's Beethoven's Ninth.
Yeah. And so so Ray is like, they're coming. And they have this whole sequence of like trying to grab Ray and Deborah trying to grab the kids and hide them upstairs and turn off the lights and shut off the television. And it's like they're throwing things and diving and then they're trying to lock the door.
Yeah, it's the live action version of so many dumb comedy movie posters about somebody trying to close a door while the person they don't like is like trying to get in.
Yeah.
You know, Uncle Buck or
Right.
whatever, cheaper by the dozen, you know, whatever
All
it
of
is.
them.
Yeah, and so every time I'm just like, who had this idea? It just like kills the momentum. And I just, after you've watched this 3 or 4 times, who is going to be looking at this going, he dove across the living room to lock the door.
To try to keep his mom, brother, and dad out. And the other thing is, this sets up a premise for the show that doesn't truly play out in the show. It isn't Deborah and Ray against the family, his family across the street.
Yes.
It is Ray against Deborah, aligned usually with his family across the street.
Yeah.
And then when Deborah's not in the room, he's put out by his family.
There's a sort of like every man for himself thing with this show where it's just like, sort of, again, misanthropy coming from all directions.
Yeah.
All right. Super Bowl Sunday, Super Bowl sitcoms. What do we think? What was the MVP, if you will? Which scored the most touchdowns? I don't know.
Yeah, keep trying. Come on, keep going. Was there a safety?
Yeah.
How many points? How many points for a safety, Jay?
Do you want to ask me about the Super Bowl teams again?
I sure do. This one you're not going to know, and that's okay. This is Super Bowl 35. I'll give you a hint. One of the teams is a New York team.
Oh, well then it's the Giants.
It is the Giants. The Giants versus the Ravens, and the Ravens won.
Okay, good stuff. So which sitcom won your respect, admiration, and amusement
The
in this
Super
lineup?
Bowl of sitcoms for this lineup, I think, is The Label Maker. That would be the Seinfeld episode. I mean, look, Seinfeld, classic, brilliant, wonderful for a reason. The Simpsons episode had some good bits, but it just didn't measure up to some of the great Simpsons episodes.
Yeah.
It was just an okay Simpsons episode. And as a person who watched the Family Guy episode directly before this, I can tell you that's a better episode than this one.
Yeah, I think to put it in Jocko terms, I think the first quarter of this game was strong and sort of, proceeded with diminishing returns. And again, I love The Simpsons as much as everybody, but I agree that the strongest one was The Label Maker for all the reasons that we said. It's a very solid classic episode of Seinfeld, mostly for the risk subplot, but just in general, we get lots of Newman, we get lots of sort of crisscrossing, the thing with the roommate,
Elaine and the dentist, every storyline, there was no subplot that was just kind of ignored. Whereas in The Simpsons, we didn't even mention the Marge and Lisa.
The Vincent Price egg decorating kit.
Yeah, craft kit from the 60s.
Yeah, which was fun. I think their Vincent Price, that's another celebrity voice that did not play themselves. Marge and Lisa can't figure out if he's dead because he has this voicemail message that comes from beyond the grave.
Is he dead or alive? I don't know. The writer's room, what they decided to do with that plot was come up with the most boring thing to have Marge and Lisa do.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I like Marge's delivery when she's taking all the things out of the game closet. There's something to do with something that offends Lisa's vegetarian sensibilities, something that offends her ecological sensibilities. And she takes out this clay sculpting kit and she goes, "What about clay? You got a problem with clay?" It's just funny whenever Julie Kavner takes that sort of annoyed attitude. But yeah, the Seinfeld one was just the most sort of chock full, dense with funny gags and ideas. The Married with Children one is just, it's funny, again, because it was just a silly sort of, the trope that I do want to cover on one of our Halloween episodes, the meeting the devil, Faustian bargain thing.
I mean, look, I've said
I'm
always a fan of a Broadway send-up, and this, as Damn Yankees, was really fun. It was great to have the Freddie cameo, even though I don't, have the connection with Freddie that you do. He is a good actor, and he's a lot of fun to watch. He's very camp, and I enjoy every minute of it. And look, I will very likely never ever say this again, but I thought this episode of Everybody Loves Raymond was a better episode than most of that show, because they didn't just let Ray get off with his normal stupidness. I think Deborah came out stronger. The writing was stronger on her side for this one.
Yeah, no, I guess that's true. But again, still frustrating to watch this all play out and just be like, why can't anybody communicate? Why can't anybody like each other? But
again,
that's Sitcoms
why can't
in the
Ray
90s
communicate? I think Deborah did a pretty good job.
Fair enough. All right. So much for Sitcoms at the Super Bowl. Thank you again, Matthew, for that excellent suggestion. I remind the world that anybody can suggest a sitcom trope by writing to us at sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com. And Amy, what are we talking about next week?
Well, we already gave you a preview.
Yeah.
We are going back to our long-running gags for the TV shows.
Rivalries, competitions, etc.
etc. We're going to do Community. We're going to do Cheers. We're going to do Brooklyn Nine-Nine and How I Met Your Mother.
Yep, that's next week. And until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.